Delta CX, available for CX and UX consulting, projects, and training. Contact us for a free consultation.
Hi everybody, it's going to be Critical Thinking Hat Day today. This is your friend Debbie Levitt from Delta CX. Welcome to our live stream podcast. This is episode 61, Is UX Elitist? Always a good question, and I'm going to have some special guests joining me in just a moment. But first, as usual, let me remind everybody, please support what we're doing here by subscribing on YouTube. I've got almost 700 subscribers, and I know that's small in the YouTube universe, but I'm proud of it. We also have a totally free Slack workspace where I answer questions, and you've got peer support as well. And like I said, no charge, absolutely free. And that's at deltacx.link/join Slack. And I apologize if I'm a little funny colored today. I chose plugging in the fan over plugging in some of my lights. People listening on iTunes, Spotify, and Google Play, you have no idea. So with that being said, let's see what we've got cooking today. We have some special guests joining, and as always, I'm going to have them introduce themselves, and I will ask them to spell their names so that anybody listening on the audio-only version will be able to find them anyway. Let's start with Darren Hood, one of our, again, popular guests. I mean, you've been on the show more than I have. Welcome. Spell your name and give everybody an introduction to you.
Hi, everybody. My name is Darren Hood. Let's just start off by saying I absolutely love user experience. Let's make that clear first and foremost. I've been practicing in UX spaces full-time for about 16 years and totally a little over 20 at all the major aspects of UX, whether it's usability, information architecture, UX research, interaction, design. I love the whole thing. I've been fortunate enough to be able to learn it, different aspects of different courses of my career. That's my stance. That's it. That's my intro.
All right, and we've got the good doctor, Dr. Nick Fine. Spell it and tell us about you.
Nick Fine, Nickfine. You'll find me on LinkedIn, or you'll hear me because I'm pretty loud and noisy. Hi everybody. Kind of what Darren said. Really much the same. I've been doing HCI and UX for about 15 years. I'm an HCI person, a human-computer interaction person, and a psychologist. And once you kind of take my old world of IT and computer science and you mash that together with psychology, you end up with HCI. And then when you take HCI into the real world, you end up with UX. So that's kind of my trajectory. My passion is behavior and user needs. And of the UX bundle of skills that we are, I'm a researcher. I love research. That's where my heart is at. So that's me in a nutshell. I'm a full stack guy, but I just love the research more.
Full stack HCD, not full stack developer, designer. Yeah.
Absolutely. I'm research, design, strategy. I'm the old school UX consultant like you guys are as well. The
Right.
all-in-one, go learn and then create.
Excellent. And of course, Darren Hood is spelled, in case you didn't, Darren Hood.
Thank you.
Hood.
Thank you. I forgot.
It's okay. I'm here for you. So today's topic is UX Elitist, and I want to remind our audience, first of all, we're live, so ask your questions and make your comments. I'm checking both the LinkedIn chat and the YouTube chat. And I created this episode and brought these fantastic guys in because you always see these things posted to LinkedIn or Medium saying UX is elitist and they're gatekeepers and they use too much jargon. And I even saw one of those Medium publications that I think none of us respect, who has no standards at all, now put out some sort of guide to working in UX. And their guide said something like, make sure when you get your first UX job you stop using jargon. Now, they didn't clarify what that was. I did a little Googling and I found another article that said UX jargon can include words like UI and deliverables, and that when we use jargon, we're alienating people and we're making them feel insecure. So let me throw it at you guys. I'll give you each a chance to bat this one out of the park. Darren, what is UX jargon? Should we use it? Shouldn't we use it? Are we being elitist jerks? Nick, take some notes. You're next.
I absolutely love the question, and this is a great opportunity, I think, to eliminate the ambiguity part of what I'm talking about in my podcast currently, the ambiguity that exists. It's a mirage. And so the jargon is a necessary thing. I was reminded the first time I heard that come up, I thought about how sometime I was unfortunately in the hospital recently. And in the hospital, the doctors were, I heard them going back and forth, and they're using their jargon. Jargon is not exclusive to UXers.
And you didn't
Wake
go, hey,
up.
buddy, dumb that down for me, please.
Right. No, you let them, they're talking to one another. When they're talking to one another, in order to be efficient and to optimize their operation, they have to use terms that help them to move quickly, efficiently, and get things done so they can get me out of the hospital. Use all the jargon you want. Just get me out of here. But when they came and talked to me, it was funny. In this instance, and I think it's really fitting for this conversation, when they came to talk to me, they started to change their terminology. And one of them literally said, I know that you're educated, so I'm just going to give it to you straight. I went, wow, okay. and it just, and of course, I'm in the hospital and I start thinking about the same thing that we're talking about. They respected my ability to digest what they were saying. So they just gave it to me, and they left it up to me to ask a question if I needed clarity. I happen to dabble a lot in medical terminology, so I knew a lot of what they were doing, but that's where we are today. Jargon exists. Deal with it.
Acronyms exist.
Acronyms exist. Learn what it is. Here we go with maybe the first raw statement. I'm not going to use any profanity, but I am going to be very raw. And I know that I don't. It's just me. I just don't. But political correctness does not exist in the UX world, not if you plan on being successful. So strap yourself in the seat and hear the things that we're going to talk about today. Grow up. Jargon exists. We will use jargon between one another, but we're going to also need to do, if we're going to excel at what we do, when we're addressing stakeholders, we're going to do what I call speaking exec. Speak the terminology that helps you to speak effectively and communicate effectively with them. I want a good UX with my communication. So I'm not going to just whip out a bunch of terms trying to look like you're the smartest guy in the room or create issues when everybody is scratching their head. That's not effective. Use the terminology that helps you to get your point across to them. And then when you're back in the room just with the UX people, we can throw our UX jargon around all we want.
So you're not going to call a persona. You're not going to call a persona a square stock photo with bully pointy storytelling.
No, you're going to use a certain term, and you just made me think about something else.
Sorry, Nick will get to you.
I will use certain jargon that I might usually reserve just for talking to another UXer. I will use with a stakeholder if I am engaging in education. And I will purposely throw a term out there that they're not familiar with, knowing that somebody is going to say, hey, what's that? I'm glad you asked that question, even though I just set it up very constructively so that you would ask me the question. Because it's going to help me to drive more education, which is at the foundation of driving and managing the UX maturity levels. You're not going to get people to advance in a corporate UX maturity level if you keep avoiding certain aspects of education. You got to help build them up. So normally terminology is going to be used between me and Dr. Fine, between me and Debbie, but there's also going to be times that we're going to avoid that with stakeholders, but there are times you have to use it. Because I mean, you don't have another word for persona. So you're going to use it and then you're going to explain it.
Picture boxy bullet pointy storytelling.
Which makes you sound like a complete, sheer and utter idiot. So,
yes, I've been found out.
So use it. It's a persona. This helps us to, and then you'll have another way you'll describe it. But then when you use the word persona, after you explain to everybody what it is, people respect that because they're smart too. Stakeholders are smart too. If you dumb down what you're saying, you start to insult them. So don't be condescending, but don't be insulting either. Give your stakeholders credit. They do have brains and they do work.
Okay, and
So,
before I
sure.
pass it over to Nick, I'm going to read a couple of comments in the chat room because they might inspire him with a couple of new responses. Sean from UX Sanctuary is here, and he basically said everything Darren said right before Darren said it. He said jargon is the language of efficiency within a given professional
go.
environment. It's our job, however, to translate our insights into the language of those departments who need to understand it. And Sean said, now I'm just going to shut up because Darren keeps saying the things I'm saying. Amy Dalton is here. Amy Dalton said, I had someone argue with me that by using acronyms, the industry I'm working in, that by using acronyms, I'm alienating people. I told him to tell the entire aviation industry to stop using acronyms, and then I will. I use them because that's what my users use. And Amy also said, just like we need to spend time learning their jargon, there's no reason they can't learn ours. And Amy also wants to know if I paid Nick to have his Delta CX book placed behind him.
No.
Sadly, no. Okay,
I'm
Nick,
an advocate.
your take on, thank you, your take on jargon.
Okay. First of all, Darren's bang on as usual. But there's a couple of nuances here, right? I believe that the digital world in general is too jargony. It's a bit like the marketing world. The acronyms thing is a kind of a red herring. IT have had acronyms. They are necessary efficiency for some of the bloody long words that get involved, like wide area network. You might as well just say WAN, right? It's a mouthful, right? It's quicker and easier. There are times in government and other places where acronyms are just used because we've got to find an acronym or make a cute little name out of it, and that's just cultural. And I think that is a bit too jargony. Interestingly, this is a current topic for me. Jargon actually is being introduced in the product spheres where we start talking about tribes and squads and chapters and guilds and all of those sorts of things, because cross-functional working is becoming such a hot topic today. And it actually kind of speaks to what we're talking about with regards to education and resource usage. Anyway, back on track. To throw another spanner into the works, right? Some of the smartest, most experienced people I know take really abstract, difficult concepts and make them mega simple without being condescending or anything like that. So as UX people, we are simplifiers. That's one of the natures of our jobs, is to understand the world and to simplify it and to meet needs. You'll always find a UX cowboy in my mind, and you'll see this in your wider personal lives. People, when they want to fluff themselves up and look smart, will start using words like cognitive disequilibrium or whatever word is, right? When there's another word that does a perfectly good job, right? By the way, that's a great word for pitches. Wicked word for pitches. Right? What I'm saying here is there are times when you're going to use technical language. In psychology, we've got plenty. That, not us being elitist, we've got a body of work that spans centuries we're going to reference. If you can't understand what the Barnum effect is, or then you need to go to your reading, unfortunately. So that's where I'm at. But basically, it's a level of efficiency. I completely agree with what Darren's saying about, and what Sean was saying. It's a level of efficiency in talking to other professionals who know the semantics through the language, and it's just quicker. If you have to stop and slow that and break it all down, that's fine. And I talk to stakeholders in a different way. I just do to a UX pro. You just do, because there's different concepts. And finally, personas, because you did have to say the P word. Persona is a great example of the UX identity problem, because you ask 10 different UX pros, like leads, what a persona is, and you're going to get 8 to 10 different answers, with nuances on them, and that's a major problem. But that's for another chapter or episode. So that's effectively my view. That we need to keep some level of jargon, but for newcomers to the industry, we need to help them on board with it.
Yeah, and you're echoing some of the things that are popping up in the chat room. Like Stephanie was saying, what happens when people have different definitions of user flow, and you're saying people have different definitions of persona. We also have Relitza saying, let's see, she was going through UX job descriptions, and it was tough to understand some of the skills and expectations. They seemed kind of fluffy and incomprehensible. Caroline is in the YouTube chat and says, I think it's important to read the room between using jargon with your team that understands it. Outside of that, explain it, keep it concise, and don't make stakeholders feel out of place. And Amy says, don't you love the person who talks in only jargon and you have no idea what they just said? And with that, I always think of the Dilbert cartoon where someone says, let's qualitize our datums. Let's qualitize our paradigms so we don't over inundate with datums. I wanted to add a few things to this. I'm not just an impartial interviewer, and I made some notes. The first note I wrote was when I joined Macy's a few years ago, one of the first things they gave me was a 3-page list of their internal acronyms. It took me weeks, if not months, to get a handle on a 3-page list of acronyms. I had to carry that thing everywhere to understand any conversation I was having. That definitely did seem a little bit alienating. And then I was also thinking about how all of our teammates use their own terms. Marketing doesn't come up and say, like, now I'm going to send this electronic correspondence to people. We call it an email mailing list. And I'm thinking about this also because I am wearing a Devops shirt from a conference that I tend to speak at every year, and I'll be speaking again there. Devops, talk about jargon. If you guys jumped into, I've gone to so many DevOps conferences. I can tell you the first time I went, I was like, DevOps, what's that? CI/CD pipeline, what? Containers, what? Kubernetes, what? And nobody speaking at the conference was like, Kubernetes, which, by the way, so they were speaking to their peers. Now, I'm going to have a future podcast on what the hell is DevOps, because I think we should all know a little bit about it, because it keeps popping up. But DevOps is not dumbing it down for us. They assume that if they say Kubernetes and I go, what's that, other than some sort of Greek nautical word, they're going to say, oh, okay, here's what Kubernetes is. And I think we shouldn't be afraid to ask people if they use a term what it means, and they shouldn't be afraid to ask us. I loved what Darren said about making this an education opportunity. We're always telling each other to evangelize UX, and you all know how I feel about that. But if you think you want to evangelize, then someone's saying, oh, a persona, what's that? And how do you make it? And what do you do with it? Or a user flow, what do you mean by that? Or you just used it to observational study, what's that? Don't be like, oh, do not put on a New York face. Do not give people New York face and go like, sorry, people on the audio only can't see me making New York faces. No eye rolling, no sighing. So obviously, we always have to remember that we have to be cheerful, friendly educators. Let's see if I missed any questions. Louis is here and says, from a non-Anglo-speaking perspective, UX is elitist, linguistically speaking, because nobody translates anything. Even World Usability Day is used in English throughout the world. Yeah, I was teaching Acture in Montreal, and I was like, what's your word for, like, this? And they were like, we use the English word. And so maybe that's just English has become elitist. I don't want to blame UX here. Okay, so any other things you guys want to say about jargon? And it sounds like you're saying we don't have to stop using it because these are important industry terms, but make sure your audience understands you.
Yeah, look, we are UX people, so we must always bear that in mind. But you look at any other practice in any other sector, everybody has local culture, local language, all of the local semantics. We are no different. It's not it doesn't exclude anybody from joining us. You just have to get on board and start learning it. And we have to be more conciliatory and sharing our knowledge as we are to help bring people on board.
Yep.
Thank you.
And my closing comment.
Yes.
Oh, yeah, my closing comment on that is that it's this, as well as other topics we're going to be discussing here today, is part of the word I always use when I say that UX is under siege. People keep trying to strip UX of what it is so that they can get involved easier. We can eliminate your jargon, eliminate your standards, eliminate what you're presenting in your definitions, then that will open the door for any and everybody. They're already saying anybody can do UX. And yeah, everybody can do UX if you strip it of everything that it is and turn it into nothing, which those same people don't realize that X number of years from now, UX is completely stripped of its value and we're all out doing something else. So it's an anarchical move.
Toonsys can drive, just not very well. Do you remember Toonsys the driving cat? Toonsys can drive,
Yes.
just not very, anyone can do UX, just not very
Always
well.
going over the
Yeah,
Yeah.
Nick,
Always
what did
going
you
over
want to
the
add to that?
Yeah, I was going to say that, like, you know what? This is a really big hot topic for me. I think for lots of people right now, this isn't a skills shortage. It's still an ongoing skills shortage, and there has been one for at least 4 to 5 years now. And the problem is because what it became redefined as wasn't what it was originally. And now people are trying to backfill all of that knowledge, that real UX that Darren's talking about. And this is what we've got to get out there, because UX, they grabbed it, they stole it from us, and they perverted it into something completely design orientated. And it could not be farther from the truth. And I know you guys know this, but we've got to change the world, because heads of UX and experience directors are being hired in design eyes, in UX UI eyes, and that does not turn out well for the industry, for the company, for the practitioner.
Yeah, and I'm working on an initiative right now. If anyone wants to join me over in the Slack channel, we are building a training program for HR recruiters and hiring managers to better understand UX. And I'm going to hope that maybe through some good training, we can change a little bit of the world here and there. Sean says standards are a big issue. It's hard to get UX advocacy when the terms are represented as many different things, and the only consistency is the level of confidence with which the opinions are expressed. Jonathan Copeland says he loved your talk at UX Joburg last night. Darren's got fans. I'm going to move on to the next topic. Another place that we tend to hear we're elitist, and this might apply more to you two than to me. You know what's coming. Fancy degrees. Now, I've got a bachelor in music. Normally, here's the funny thing. I hear you guys picked on for your fancy UX and psychology degrees, and then I get picked on for not having one. I've actually had people attack me on LinkedIn and go, well, you just have a bachelor's in music. Maybe you don't understand this, and maybe you can't do this, and maybe you never learned that. So magically, you guys are being attacked for having degrees. I'm being attacked for not having a degree. So maybe the elitist person is the one doing the attacking. I'll start with Nick this time. Nick, what's your take on the people who feel that having a UX 4-year degree, master's, PhD is elitist?
Initially, when I joined LinkedIn, I was Nick Fine. I think after a while I became Nick Fine PhD, and then I became Dr. Nick Fine. And I had lots of discussions in academic forums and all this kind of stuff. Should I put it doctor? Should I put it PhD? Should I not put it at all? And there's a huge divide amongst people in this world as to whether it's flexing or is it actually good signposting. Now, I'm of the opinion, especially in our latter day mess, that signposting and quality control is absolutely essential these days. That's these days, okay? If you are a 10, 15-year pro and you do not have that, unless you've been working in some kind of backwater, you're probably on the rails, because you would have made so many mistakes and worked with so many people just by sheer brute force. After that much time, you've either left the industry, you've got a shocking reputation, or you're probably pretty good by now. So, but for new people coming into this world, this UX UI mess, where marketing people rule and make committee decisions, having a level of quality around, for example, scientific principles that drive research, I am fully behind. And that's why I'm really a big advocate for psychology graduates. Nothing more masters, no postgrad work, just people who have graduated with a BSc in psychology, not BA, BSc, because unknowingly they've got all the principles in place and probably some of the actual lab skills. And having that level of quality to generate insight, which ends up on the balance sheet through ROI, is immense. It's huge. The world doesn't realize it yet. So I see the value of a well-qualified user researcher, something tantamount to like a data scientist or like those super high-paid quant jobs. You know what I mean? They should be, in the next 10 years, the go-to people, the unicorns, whatever you want to call those, because that's the science, is getting valid insights, and that's not massively easy. So like you said earlier, anybody can do it. You just might not raise the greatest of insights that are that reliable.
Great. And before, I want to throw in something from our friend Chinu in the Dallas area. And he says the problem is that people treat degrees and certificates as tickets. You've got to make the most of your program and do stuff outside of the classroom. Darren, your thoughts on degrees, since I think you're, of the three of us, you are the winner with the most.
I'm the most, but I'm still chasing where Dr. Fine is. I still have 7 classes to go, and then I can be Dr. Darren Hood or whatever. I'll have that same dynamic. Well, to make a decision, what do I call myself? Pardon?
Yeah. You have to take classes?
Yeah, 6, 7.
What, you have to
mine
learn
is pure
stuff?
research. They just kick you out.
You have to learn
6,
stuff?
7
You mean
classes to go.
I can't just get a certificate and then say doctor?
I think you can
Well,
in
they make us
Hawaii
work
or
and
somewhere
bring
Grenada.
in- Oh my God, they do. They put us through the ringer, which is good because, and that's sort of where I'm going. As I was listening to Dr. Nick talk, I started thinking about my journey, and I think it covers I run the gamut from Debbie to Dr. Nick. When I got my first UX job, my first full-time UX gig, I had an associate's degree. That was it. I had nothing else. What I brought to the table, and this is where I want to encourage a lot of people who don't have the degrees, because I come across a lot of people who don't have the degrees, and they automatically put themselves down. They automatically discount themselves. Let me tell you what I had then that's still the major thing I bring to the table now. Passion.
I was going to say talent.
Say that again?
I was going to say talent. You
talent?
may not have had the degree in
Yeah.
monster education, but you had talent.
I had talent. I had the willingness to grow. I had a really high level of self-awareness when I got that first gig. Those are still the major driving elements today. The passion. I think about the research again, the inquisitive nature. Some of those things that I cover in my emotional intelligence talk that don't usually get covered by people when they're talking about emotional intelligence. What are you really the kid who always said why? And you never thought that would turn into something valuable as you got older? Well, as a UX person, that's extremely important now to continue asking why. So that first job, I had all this passion. I had an associate's degree, which nobody cared about. What they cared about was that I came into that interview and I demonstrated that I had the chops necessary to execute that entry-level information architecture position. That's what was important, not the issue, because I know people who have degrees. Frankly, I almost hate to say this, but I'm going to say it. I've had students. I didn't mention that I'm a professor at 2 universities, right? One, I teach the entire master's UX curriculum, and the other one, I teach system analysis and design, and I design an HCI course for them. I've had students, mostly at that master's level, I wouldn't dream to work with, frankly. Some of them are probably on the phone, on the call right now.
I've seen their portfolios. I've seen their portfolios.
And I'm going,
You guys are savage.
got to be kidding. And remember what I mentioned. Passion, an inquisitive nature, talent, drive, never seeing yourself as having arrived, always reaching to do more and achieve more and be more. And they just didn't have it. They winged their way through assignments. They really didn't care. They really didn't have any attention to detail. The drive wasn't there. So, and they graduated. Who knew? But if you
And
had
they get
to go
certificates
into
too.
yeah, they get certificates, and I'm like, no. So it's not about the title. It's not about, it's not about the degree. It's about what you bring to the table from a character standpoint and from a value standpoint. And whatever your degree is, it's not the fact that I have 2 master's degrees today. It's the drive. I don't come into the room and talk about my degrees. I don't come into the room and do anything like that. What can I do to bring you value now? The degrees, that was what Darren wanted to do. That's the choice that Darren made. And for everybody under the sound of my voice today, if you choose to do something like that, it's a choice that you make. And you don't have, there's no entitlement because you have the degrees. God knows I know that. Someone told me once, a recruiter once told me, wow, you sure do have a great background. You can go anywhere you want. I said, man, really? I already know that you're barking up the wrong tree. Let me hit you with some reality. If you notice, look at Debbie, look at Dr. Nick, look at me. It is blatantly obvious that I have a higher melanin content. For for that reason, for that express reason alone, I can't go certain places. People have I'm blackballed in certain arenas. I can't, as skilled as I am, not toot my horn, just citing facts. I know my stuff. I know I know the discipline. I know how to execute. I'm completely liquid, completely flexible. I can go into any work environment and give you the world. But because I'm black, some folks want nothing to do with me. It has nothing to do with my ability. Absolutely no. First, people were mad because I didn't have a degree. Then, when I got the first degree, they got mad because I got my bachelor's. Then I went back. I want to do more. I went and I got a master's. I wasn't satisfied with the learning experience in my master's, a UX focused master's. So I went and I got a second master's. Almost went and got a third one in education. Backed off of that and went to PhD. But then they got mad because I got the first degree. Then they got mad because I got the first master's. Then they got mad because I had the second master's. And they get mad because I'm on the show with Debbie today. I mean, seriously.
Anyone can be on the show with Debbie. No, I'm kidding.
I gave you a huge shout out yesterday when I did the show with UX Joburg, speaking for them. A huge shout out. So you're going to have a bunch of people. I said, please check in with Debbie Levitt stuff. You want to learn what UX is, check in with her. But a bunch of people, they wouldn't even listen. They wouldn't chime in, nothing. So it's not about, forget about the degrees so I don't go on a tangent, because you know I will. It's not about the degrees. It's about what you bring to the table. And when you do get the degrees, it's still about what you bring to the table. It's still about the passion. It's still about the skill. It's still about the value, and it never changes. And don't let the fact that the person who's interviewing you or your boss doesn't know that. Make sure you know that that's what matters and that you stick to that. Don't turn, don't sway, don't become degree happy. There's nothing.
Over to Nick. I
just want to add something. That was awesome, Darren. Absolutely awesome. I want to tell the audience just a very 1-minute story about a guy I worked with called Alan, and I hope Alan's on the call. Hawko, if you're there, love you, brother. Alan and I worked together about 5 or 6 years ago at a publicist agency, right? There was a very small UX team, myself and 2 others. I was a senior, he was the junior, we had a mid. Cut a long story short, Alan had come from a really small little agency and wasn't getting the research experience that he wanted to. He has no formal qualifications, no academics, no niche, right? Just a good lad, right? I couldn't give him the research experience. We weren't getting at that period of time, getting the projects through the door into the studio. So he had an offer to go work with Dr. Dave at another agency. And I said, dude, that's the best thing you can do. Go take that job. And the lesson for everybody is the passion that Darren's talking about not only drives your learning and your motivation, but it's that passion that drives you to tough it out. Because toughing it out is an absolutely critical skill set for what we do. You've got to be hard as nails. And I don't care if that's elitist or not, you have to develop that thick skin. Doing 2 8-hour sessions back to back in the lab is a ball breaker. It busts you up. You will fall asleep the minute you get home. It's tough. When you're in learning really difficult things or coming up with some really tough problems that we're at, or with some really difficult people or a crowd control in a room, your passion helps you to tough it out, and it helps you be climbing this UX curve. It's a tough one, right? One of the things I really want, when I was thinking about this earlier, that I wanted to drop in is when I was younger, there was a massive concept of climbing the ladder, cutting your teeth, you know, that kind of junior mentality. And it seems these days that bit has gone. So you needed the passion to tough it out, to deal with being a junior, so you could go to be treated like crap, do the tough stuff, all the heavy lifting. You know what I mean? And that's what makes you who you are. I'm only a collection of really shocking experiences that come together as a really good one. And that's got nothing to do with my degree, nothing to do with my degrees. Now, Alan, after 5 years at this new place, is a research god, okay? He's awesome. I couldn't be prouder of the guy. And so all it comes down to is toughing it out with the right people, being humble, keeping an open mind, and being a sponge. Don't get to Mount Stupid and then think you know everything. Get humble again, start learning. I'm out.
Okay,
Sorry, Darren.
I'm going to read a couple of chat room comments, and then I'm going to give my response here. Chinu says, the way I look at it is kind of like this. Spark and interest motivate you to want to go deep, which then gets translated into practice, which then becomes talent. This is based on books I've read on talent and motivation. I'm not sure I agree, but that I'm not going to fight you on that today. Louis is here, and he says, we are just saying degrees are not important because we haven't developed good UX education yet. Teaching was all about drive too, but nowadays anywhere in the world, a 3-year course is standard. And this 3-year course will prepare you to be a good teacher and weed out the bad ones. So I think that when UX education gets fixed, we'll probably care about it a little bit more. Sean from UX Sanctuary says, do you think that the elitist accusation comes from those who are UX UI unicorns who really don't want to do full UX and seek to justify their position? Whoa. Let's handle that later. So to wrap up education, one thing I wanted to talk about quickly, and thanks to all of these, Jonathan, you had a question too, but I have to admit I didn't totally get it and I wasn't sure if it was relevant. Maybe try rephrasing it. I wanted to tell you guys that here in Italy, if you get a bachelor's degree, you are called doctor. And so you are not doctor after master's, you are not doctor after PhD, you are doctor after your bachelor's degree, which means I could technically, if I wanted, I could be Dottoressa Deborah Levitt. And
I like it.
And I could be that because I have graduated from a 3 or 4 year university and I have a proper degree, albeit in music. And I thought it was very interesting in Italy that as I'm meeting people, everyone, and they put it on their business cards, they're very proud of it. I find the women use it a lot. Like my bank, the woman who opened my bank account gave me a business card that says Dottoressa. So she's very proud that she did college. And so I thought that was like an interesting, albeit maybe accidental, field leveler, where it wasn't just people with PhDs or medical school who are doctor. It is any 3 or 4 year degree and up. You can call yourself doctor, but it is optional. I am not using it. So I thought that was an interesting point, just because it's something we don't think about. And so I think people who don't like that people have degrees ask if it's your own jealousy, because in reality there's nothing wrong with having a degree, and there's nothing off the charts amazing about having a degree. I agree with these guys when we say it's really about what you bring to the table and not the piece of paper that you have on the wall. Let's see.
Debbie, can I add something quickly?
Yeah, of course.
The problem here really is it's ongoing professional development. That's the problem, because we're talking about like a 10-year thing here. You could be an awesome person and say, right, this UX thing has just come around. I want to get a piece of the pie. How do I get in? That's where the appetite for Red, Flatiron, General Assembly, all of those guys, and that's where the UX industry hasn't done a good enough job in getting some kind of accreditation or some kind of quality control, because people do want to buy into this thing, but they can't. And that's the problem. If you're coming out of university right now and let's say you've got psychology undergrad, great, you've got a trajectory. But if you're a designer from Camberwell College, or you've got a fantastic degree or whatever that is, and you want to convert yourself and learn more research, and how do you do that? You can't. And so this is where
we don't have clear paths. We don't have as clear paths. Okay, well, that's a problem to solve another day. Let's talk about another thing that we put on our list of things that make people think we are elitist. I'm going to throw out to you guys, I see complaints about, oh, UX conferences are so expensive and that's elitist. You're keeping people from attending these conferences, and there are these celebrity speakers and celebrity authors, and they probably get paid so much money to do all this speaking, and oh, this is so elitist. And I want to say quickly that I am rarely paid for the speaking I do, and in many cases I had to pay for my own flight and hotel to get my fat ass to your city to speak at that at that conference, and maybe they give me a shirt. These guys are nice. They do give me a free hotel room and sometimes a little bit of money. I love these people, but I do have a lot of their shirts. But in general, I'm lucky if sometimes I get a shirt and I go, bitches, I wish you paid for my hotel. You can keep your shirt. But these guys are great, the Devops Con. But celebrity speakers and authors, which hypothetically could be the three of us, you're elitist. What do you say, Darren?
Oh boy, what a topic. Conferences, over my years, conferences have changed dramatically. I think it's partially due to the maturity. Can you guys hear me okay?
Yeah.
Partially due to the level of maturity that we're at from a UX standpoint, where a lot of people have advanced with regard to their UX practices. And when I turn the clock back, you go back to the mid 2000s, 2010, 2012. Oh God, conferences were all the rage. And you could go seemingly to almost any conference and it would be a great experience and you would have a great takeaway and you could come away with all types of to-do items. That stopped. On average, there are still good conferences. On average, a lot of conferences have become, maybe I'm in a position to see more, but I know people, man, I've heard people say this. I sure would like to speak at a conference. I'd like to get there and talk about UX. And the person who said that doesn't have a lot to offer.
Okay.
The people running the conferences have engaged in it used to be about, they used to love the discipline. Again, the passion. People used to love UX. The love for UX is waning. A lot of people who have been around for a long time do not have the same passion. They don't have the same commitment, and they want to make money off their Now the conference is a moneymaker. And it's not about the discipline. It's not about furthering the practice. It's not about helping people learn more. It's about making the almighty dollar. And so there was one conference, I'll leave it nameless this time, you know that I usually call them out. I will not, because the example is more important than who, and because so many people are guilty of this that identifying one is unfair to let the other ones go scot-free. There's one conference, 250 applications to speak at the conference. The more practical your talk was, the less likely you were that they would approve your talk. Ooh. They wanted people to bring sensationalistic topics that they could put the name of it down, everybody go, like that topic, the phrase that Dr. Nick mentioned earlier. I saw somebody actually give a talk with a name that was similar to that, where it was, supercalifragilisticexpialidocious to the empower on the, we're going to superimpose, and that's the title. And everybody, ooh, not everybody wants to come and see that.
Shiny object.
So it's cognitive and neuro, basically. Sorry, go on.
Basically. And so now, what's my takeaway going to be? You're just going to come sensationalize me? I remember the movie The Mummy, where you have a people running on the street, just Imhotep, just running around. Nobody's thinking, but everybody's just Imhotep, just walking around. Where's the critical thinking? What am I going to do with what you're talking about? Why are you giving me all these inutile concepts that I can do nothing with? She puts the hat on. That's what I see at many of the conferences. And then, okay, I didn't get approved for that. Well, no, that's fine. I know that happens. But when I saw the topics, I'm like, are you kidding me? What is anybody going to do with that? What is that? And that's where we are. And so as these people, as I call them, posers, retrofits, and upstarts, are storming the walls of UX, it's running all the way up to the people who are running the conferences, the topics, because those people don't want to hear anything. I mentioned before, somebody wrote a book. The book was full. I remember when they presented the topic before they wrote the book, and it was full of curated psychological concepts. I understand that you're presenting all these curated concepts, but you could at least add your own thoughts and tell us how to apply that to UX instead of taking what other people did and basically making a name for yourself off of it. That's unethical.
And we're going to run out of time soon, so I'm going to throw it over to Dr. Nick, because we got another topic after this.
Hi, yeah, cool. So following from Darren saying, it bothers me that in our conference world, which is a major community and education meeting point, that we have these professional speakers who are on the speaker circuit 24/7. That's their source of income. They are no longer practitioners, and they haven't been for a long time. Debbie, I know you and I, our favorite person, I'm not going to mention, but we all know who I'm talking about.
That person who unravels. The person who unravels from time to time.
You know, Darren, that person who actually said in London when I was at a last minute thing, probably 6 or 7 years ago now, he said something like, it turns out I like this speaking stuff and I'm good in it and I can make money from it. And what is actually happening is people using it as an escape route because they're bullshitting quite heavily. And it's like, well, if I get paid more just to talk about stuff and not actually have to do stuff where I can get called out, well, hey, I'm going to do that. And it's the same motivation that people want to go up to management quickly because I don't actually have to do the thing. The more time you spend doing the thing, the more confident you're going to be. That's what I mean about climbing the ladder. So is UX elitist at conferences? Only when you've got those rock stars. Now, am I one of those rock stars? Hell fucking no, pardon my French. Sorry, I was trying not to swear.
I gave you 7 minutes, you made 45.
Okay, I did great. See all these conference badges over here, right? I spend most of my conference life working for Tech Circus, who do UX Live in London and the Behavior and Design Conference. And let me tell you something. Yes. They are fantastic conferences. I'm not paid by them. I've never been paid by them. They are genuinely awesome. They're not PR machines. They haven't got the, there's genuine takeaways. And anyone who's heard me speak or any of my co-speakers at one of those conferences, they are jam-packed full of takeaways from practitioners like me who take time out of our practitioner jobs to, out of my own time, give stuff to you guys for free. Stuff that I could get paid on that I don't get paid on. I can write books, journals, I could do all kinds of stuff with this. I don't. My sole source of income is my day job. Everything else is me being generous and being not elitist, trying to give people the real stuff because there's so much signal to noise out there right now. We're the signal. We've just got to be louder to get rid of the noise because people are latching on to the wrong noise. And so I guess all three of us are just being noisy to try to protect user centricity effectively.
Yeah. And I've got a bunch of notes I want to add to this, and we might run a little late today because we have too many good topics. So I wanted to mention, first of all, I think conferences will be replaced by YouTube channels. And I think especially between the pandemic and the fact that people complain about things not being accessible, I predicted this last year before the pandemic, conferences will be replaced by YouTube channels. I want people to know that when you buy my book, I make $4. So if you think I'm some sort of rich elitist bitch pushing my book around and making Dr. Nick show it off, I get $4. I just got my Amazon quarterly royalty payments yesterday. I think I got $120 for the entire quarter. Thank you. That means I get to buy chicken for my dogs. I lose money speaking, so I probably spoke at 50 events last year. I flew 100,000 miles. I was in 62 cities, and I was paid by 4 conferences. And I mean, when I get paid, and I'll tell you the exact numbers, some conferences have given me $500, some conferences have given me $750, some conferences have given me $1,000. I don't think I've been paid more than that yet. Sometimes I get hotel room and some travel reimbursement, so maybe the value of what they're giving me exceeds $1,000 because they paid for my flight and they paid for my hotel. But I want you to know I fly economy. I am not in first class. I stay at the Hampton Inn. I am not at the Ritz-Carlton. And so if you don't like what your UX conference costs, and especially if it's an in-person conference, look at the food they're serving. Look at where they held it. Remember, they got usually tens of thousands of dollars from every sponsor, and they got money from you, and they gave me almost nothing. So please stop telling me that conference speakers. Now, I know that a certain guy who unravels from time to time is looking sometimes for $30,000 to speak at your event. That's not me. There's a few of those out there. That's not me. That's not Nick. That's not Darren. I just always request, can I break even? Can I not lose money going to your event? You know, could you pay for my travel? And very often it's no, we're going to give you nothing. So I just want to make sure people understand that I lose money on this. I also find that conferences bring in the same, UX conferences bring in the same crappy speakers over and over, because I mostly tour engineering conferences, and I barely see the same people twice, except for the awesome Anton Babenko from Finland. But other than him, I barely see the same people twice. They have really fresh rosters. UX conferences, I see the same people over and over, and it's not even me, because I don't apply to that many of them. But I am so tired of the same people giving the same talks, and if you want to hear my response talk to a very famous UX talk, you can go into the podcast playlist for live stream podcasts and look up an old one called The UX Tipping Point of Pal Mickey. Just going to leave that there. And finally, I want to say, if you really want to laugh, I've got a blog post from like 2007 where I came up with information architecture categories of conference sessions. And I said most conference sessions fall into a category that I'm calling theoretical wanky, because it's completely non-actionable. You know, I try to make every talk I give and every podcast I do and everything I say actionable. It's either something you can go and try, go and talk about, go and learn more about. I cannot tell you how many of these conference sessions do not give you anything actionable, totally wanky, and people don't have their critical thinking hats on, and they go, oh, he was such a marvelous speaker. He's got so much charisma. And I go, yeah, that's fine, but he's also a total dick. He's selling us all out, and the main point of his talk was hire me to train your company, and that's a sales pitch. So I'd like to say that about conference speaking. Scott Smallman says, theoretical wanky. Love that. Yeah, because it's not actionable. Cognitive neuro ML-based personas. Ooh.
Do you know what I mean? It's just throw some cool words together.
Yeah, it was mostly because I used to speak at eBay's conferences in the 2000s, and I went to a lot of e-commerce conferences where I was a speaker in the 2000s before y'all knew me. And there was always the same guys from a company I won't name who I didn't like, who would get up and be like, do their talk, what's the future of e-commerce? And I'd be like, F the future. No one's getting it right now. Help them fix it now. I don't care about the future of e-commerce. F your future of e-commerce. Okay, so our next topic is, and guys, I know you're commenting. I just want to say quickly, I know you're commenting. The comments are all over the place. You guys are great. People are supportive of what you guys are saying. And someone loves your Cornish ware mug. And someone's asking, how do we educate UX folks without pushing them away? I think that's just by having better... less arrogance, and let's see, yeah, there's so many things here, I can barely read all of them. Stephanie says, we are cheap. She knows some speakers are charging $5,000, $10,000, first-class tickets for them and their partner to fly around. Some of the things I've gone to, I brought my boyfriend, and I have paid to fly him because I like him and I wanted him there. I flew his lovely ass to India last year because I just wanted him with me, and nobody paid for that. So I don't get it. Nick, did you have something you wanted to add to that? To conferences?
No, but I definitely need to get a lovely ass.
Okay,
What I was going to say was, there's, what we talk about design thinking a lot. Recently, I've been talking about science thinking. There's too much of this marketing thinking going on, and that's what's driving a lot of this stuff. It's old school marketing trends-based stuff. What's the future of e-commerce? That's bullshit. You know what I mean? It's such a dumb question. It's and so when you've got marketing and digital is inherently trendy, we all know that, and it's the major problem. But what we do, user centricity, all the principles that drive us, they're not trendy in the least. And as you're saying, Debbie, people need to get down with those core principles and execute them well before getting fancy, right? Walking before you run. That's the bottom line here. So we got to remove a lot of this marketing thinking and get into some proper design, UX thinking, whatever you want to call that modern day thing.
Yeah, and I just want to remind people, to me, my YouTube channel, and I'm going to have to cover Darren's face on this one, but my YouTube channel, please subscribe, help, My YouTube channel, to me, is a never-ending conference with speakers and experts on different topics, giving facts, giving opinions, giving perspectives. My YouTube channel is a never-ending conference, and I hope people will tell other people about it. I know LinkedIn didn't notify people today that we were live. I don't know why LinkedIn didn't notify, but luckily they did on YouTube, which is why I tell people, please subscribe on YouTube. LinkedIn does not always send out the notification that we're live, and when they do, it sometimes lags 3 minutes behind. YouTube, you're usually 20 seconds behind. We can have a real conversation. So the last topic we had talked about covering for Is UX Elitist is I often hear that, hey, if you expect UX people to have certificates and degrees and education, well, we're just keeping people out of jobs. We're just blocking good people from getting that junior UX job that they want and deserve. And I keep hearing that people are gatekeepers, that we are gatekeepers, and we are keeping good people from getting the jobs that they want and deserve. I should start with Nick this time. Don't even write your notes, Nick. Go for it.
Okay, gatekeeper. Hey, it's about quality control. It's about maintaining the trajectory that we were on.
Yes.
It's already been really badly hijacked. We're already probably 10 years behind now because of UX UI. We should be in the future right now. It's ridiculous. Gatekeeping is a form of quality control, and look at it this way: the insight that we raise at the very front end of any product development process, at the beginning of anything, is a user researcher usually, or should be, right? If you put that in the wrong hands, you generate the wrong insight or invalid, unreliable insight, and then everything else that follows is in the wrong direction.
Garbage.
Okay, you're going to be course correcting, and it becomes just a gigantic nightmare. Number one, we don't let people who like brain surgery just have a go at it, because you're going to kill someone. We don't let junior tax people who are not qualified or certified do tax returns, because bad shit happens because somebody's going to get sued by the IRS. Right, same as in UX. If you're going to spend X million pounds or X amount of money on a product to develop it, you're not going to have some schmuck at the front end going, I asked my mum and 3 other people and they wanted it red. Let's do that. That's what's happening across the board daily. Sorry,
I'm trying to
now.
not cry.
It's a major problem. And no one, this is what's crazy, nobody knows that it's happening. I'm looking at it on camera, sorry. Nobody knows that it's happening because they build something and 6 to 12 months later, it's not working. And there's no attribution to the actual process. And that's what I'm spending my life doing right now, is going to conferences, trying to talk to people about validity and these core first principles, because you get those down, you can forget your certificate. You don't need certificates and stuff. You just need principles and experience and a bit of mentorship. That's what is needed. If we can get a certificate to encapsulate that learning, fantastic. But that's where it's at for me. I don't want to rant on too much, but that's basically it.
Yeah, let me give you a couple of chat room comments, and then we'll plug Darren into this. So Sean from UX Sanctuary says gatekeeping is just a passive-aggressive term used by UX haters. Alicia,
Yes.
I think that's Alicia, says yes, all of this. Chinu says good UX practices take rigor and strategy and aren't trivial at all. Scott Smallman, who was our guest just a few days ago in episode 60, what does it take to be a UX junior? Scott Smallman says preach. So Darren, gatekeeping, because we are elitist and want to keep people out of working in UX.
Sean already took a little bit of my thunder. Kudos on that. It is a passive aggressive picture, if you will. There's 2 things I was going to mention now, so I might forget the one because I'm getting older. Anyway, the picture, if you will, a shepherd, a sheep, and wolves. The wolves want to get it. The shepherd cares about the well-being of the sheep and the well-being of the operation that the sheep are associated with. The wolves are on the outside because there's a fence to keep the wolves, because the wolves want to eat the sheep. The wolves want to come in and just be rapacious. They just want to come in and cause problems. And they have their desires, their will, very self-willed. Only how they benefit and what's in it for them drives what they do. Nobody's mad. Of course, the shepherd is the gatekeeper. Nobody's mad about the gate. Nobody's mad about the fence, but the wolves. And it's the same exact thing here. It is a passive-aggressive term. They keep trying to put us on the defense like we did something wrong. They're angry about the jargon because they don't know it, and they refuse to put forth the sweat equity to learn it. They're angry
Yeah,
about
man.
entry because they, and I love the examples that Dr. Nick just gave. They're angry about the any barriers to entry because it keeps them from just coming in and taking a hold on something because they saw a report on salaries for UX people and they want their piece of the pie, but they don't want to do what it takes to qualify for the pie. You can't just have the pie. You
Where's
can't
my
just come up
pie?
to the counter and ask for a pie. You need a plate. You need something to be able to get at the pie. And then they're also engaging. I mean, the passive aggressivism is off the charts. You want to get into UX? Connect with somebody. Find the path to get there, and stop just. We're not just going to wave a magic wand and pop you into a position, even though that's what's happening. Oh my God, the people who are getting these leadership positions with no skill, no knowledge, no nothing, and then they hire other people exactly like them, and it's happening all over the world, and it's absolute insanity. I have seen at least 5 people in the last week or 2 weeks that I know of who have ascended to a UX leadership position and have less than 3 seconds of UX experience to their credit. And like I said earlier, you can go anywhere. Well, I couldn't get those jobs, could I? Because they're too busy. They're avoiding salary. Anyway, very, very sad. Gatekeeping is necessary. They call it gatekeeping to make it sound like something else. And they're infusing bias in people when they use a term like that. That's the gaslighting that takes place with regard to UX. That's the passive aggressivism. Call what they're doing something that people don't like so that people will then, in turn, not like the thing and not engage in critical thinking to see what's really going on. And then you have the IKEA effects. I remembered the second thing. The IKEA effect is at work, where people are they want to like something because they're involved with it or because they did it, and because they did it or they built it or it's because it's them. Then they ascribe more value to it. They want you to ascribe more value to it. I'm not going to put more value on something because you want to do it. You want to be it. And I'll close on this thought and get out of the way. One person called me once. He said, Darren, do you know what gatekeeping is? And number one, that's stupid because I'm 59 years old. What do you think? Number two, stop asking. You're paving the way for your underlay for overplay. You're about to say something stupid and manipulative. And so I said, yeah, I know what gatekeeping is. Do you know what passive aggressivism is? And that's the way I responded to him. And I never heard back from the person at all. And that was coming from a person who got shoehorned into a group of developers. They got shoehorned into a UX department, and none of them was doing true UX work at all. And they were angry. Darren's hard to work with. Sorry, Dr. Nick. I'll say
Can
this.
you guys stay late? I know we're running late. Do you guys have a hard stop,
sure,
or
I
can you
can.
stay?
I have
No, I
a few
can stay.
minutes, and I'm running off to a doctor's appointment. The person
Okay.
said, Darren is hard to work with. You never worked on anything with me. Why do you say Darren is hard to work with? Because he's always talking about posers and retrofits, and he's going to say the same thing about me.
Wah,
Well,
wah.
if the shoe fits, I mean, if and you're not, and I was doing everything to help develop the person. They just went into a closet, had a paranoid fit, and then came out crying and told everybody about their paranoid fit as if it was really happening. I give, just like what was said, I give of myself all the time. Been doing it for years. Give of myself because I love what I do. I help people grow. I help people advance. I help build people up. I'm not standing there, you can't come in here. You don't have a degree. I haven't did that. Where'd that come from?
Not a
I'm
thing.
afraid he's going to say that about me. Really?
Right.
Why? Did you actually come to me and ask me what to do to help? And now that person actually, I can't say too much, but that person tapped into one of my most highly supported resources for learning. But they didn't come to me about it. They just did it on their own. So it's ridiculous. Come off of the inferiority complexes, folks. Come off of it.
I want to read some comments and give you my thoughts. I'm sorry we're running late, but this is too good to stop. Steve Y in the YouTube chat says the design industry isn't holding this type of behavior to account. A lot of mid-seniors designers are too busy playing social economics by liking and accepting the same behavior that undermines UX. Very true. We agree with you, Steve Y. Louis says ranting is good. Sean says, companies don't want to change their business and project process that UX demands to deliver great results. Scott Smallman says, people just want to be part of the theater of UX, including the salary. Some want to ship something sexy that they can market and brag about, not what's needed or measurable that improves people's experiences or lives. Scott Ruber is here and says, I'm coming in way late and I've already nodded my head at least 30 times at Darren. And Chinu says, Sean also says, we got to stop using the word design. I've been shifting more to CX and architecture. Chinu says the key differentiator between someone who's getting into this for the money versus actually as the passion is that the former is always looking for the easy way to get to the top and get the name. Saying that something is a gatekeeper comes off as entitled. Now here's my notes. The notes that I wrote down were, I don't know about where you guys grew up, but where I grew up, probably Darren, I don't know, Nick, I think you grew up on that side of the pond, but there was always commercials on TV like, do you want a good stable job? Do you want to make money? Learn how to fix refrigerators. Do you remember that? And they would try to get everybody to become a refrigerator repair person. And it was like, you're going to get a good, stable job. You're going to make money. Come and learn to fix refrigerators. And I feel like that's the current UX vibe because we have so many boot camps and even universities and schools who are putting out ads. Someone told me about a billboard, an ad in Berlin, maybe not a billboard, maybe a bus stop ad, but it was like, are you unemployed? Just get a UX certificate and start making good money. And so I interviewed a bunch of people who went to boot camps and weren't happy with them. And one of their complaints that I heard over and over was the people I interviewed said, I could tell who in my class was going to be strong at UX and who's going to be weak at UX. And I have to go compete against those people? Wow. I'm angry at the school for not having any standards and letting all these people in. And even if they let all these people in, I'm angry at the school for graduating them because these are people who shouldn't graduate. Yep. They said from poor work to disgusting personalities. They said there were some really difficult, unpleasant people who should not be going out into the world and working in UX. And so my point is, I wish there was some gatekeeping. I wish there were some gatekeeping because gatekeeping is another word for standards. And I think that it's okay to have some standards. We're not blocking people just because the three of us think we're more special than you. If you're watching this, we need you. I've noticed a real trend in my YouTube watchers. You're not the people watching the videos with 11,000 hits that say, learn how to get a UX job with no qualifications. You're watching me because you have something different in your hearts and something different in your minds and something different running through your blood. Otherwise, you'd be watching that video right now on how you don't need any qualifications to get a job. We need to keep the gate, and we need you to get in it, and we need the other people who are not set up or poised or talented or have the right traits or passion or dedication who think it's just going to be easy to be potentially weeded out through a better application process, through actually reviewing people's work and telling them you didn't do that work well. Can you imagine if everyone who entered medical school graduated? I looked this up. Not even everyone who enters hairdressing school graduates. They have more standards than we do. So I would like to see some gatekeeping, not because we're elitist, but because someone opened the gates and all the sheep ran out and all the wolves ran after them and we had no standards. I want to see standards again. And I find that when I say these things, people get defensive because they wonder if when I say not the right personality traits, not the right talent, they get defensive and they go, well, what if she's talking about me? Well, then she's a bitch and I'd better fight her on LinkedIn and then block her. And I go, if defensive is just a reminder for yourself to look at yourself. I may or may not be talking about you, but it's time for more self-awareness and I'm not against the gate. A couple of things here. Scott says, I came into UX from elsewhere, but I have an appreciation and passion for the discipline. The pay is nice, but I want to do good work. I want to be proud of what I put out there. Louis says, this is what really pisses me off. We're trying to help instead of completely ignoring people like professionals do in other fields. And people still have the nerve to say we're stressing them out. Yeah, the three of us give of our time a lot. And so when people, I had someone say I was rude and self-absorbed and I wasn't helping them enough. And I was like, what didn't I do? And they just blocked me. And I was like, I guess I'll never know. Sean says, until the UX community agrees good standards, there will never be good UX training. Stephanie says, do you hate your job? Just become a UX designer. Come, it's fun. We have Post-its and we play all day long with Sharpies. Scott agrees that gatekeeping is a pejorative for having standards. Jonathan is Jonathan's wondering, what's the way forward? How do we not be posers when we're new to the discipline? Just because you're new to the discipline doesn't mean you're a poser. Go ahead, and we've got more comments. And I'm sorry, Darren, if you have to go, I'm afraid we'll have to lose you, but hopefully you can stay a few more.
I'll try to say it really quickly because I'd love Darren to hear it, because I've spent quite a lot of time in design agencies and other places, right, as part on my journey. The design world, the creative world, we've stolen their structure, right? Junior, mid, senior, lead, design director, creative director, executive creative director. That's any agency, at least in England that I've been at, there's been a very standard structure. You've got that's just what happens, right? So you can come out of the world's greatest art school, right? The Royal College of Art, Falmouth, Camberwell, whatever. Complete elite design skills, right? But you can come out of that and you're not suddenly a senior or a lead designer. You come in as an intern or a junior, right? Because design, like UX, is very experiential. And that ladder from junior, mid, senior, lead is the experiential learning with mentorships and wings around people, making safe mistakes, learning that sense that you need as a designer. Now, you can only get there, you can't be a design director with at least a minimum of like 5 to 8 years experience, because there's no way you can develop those sensibilities or have the experience in any less time. The takeaway, and to answer the question, is what we have to do in the UX and digital world is do more of that. They've copied from us all the time. We need to nick that structure of having seniors and leads teaching and mentoring juniors and mids. That's in theory what should be happening, but everybody's going straight to senior. There's no juniors or mids. And if everyone goes straight to senior and no bullshitting, everybody underneath misses out. And I can't I need more people to, like me and you guys, sharing downwards. And so take it to your organization. If you're a leader, please put in place some kind of recognition of people's levels, their experience, and support them. Support leads in the balance between practitioner and mentoring. Support juniors in giving them access and exposure to lead type stuff. You've got to mix it up. It's like a football team. You know what I mean? You've got to bring your juniors in to play alongside the veterans. It's an ongoing thing. Constant refresh.
Yeah,
Excellent.
and we've got a comment from Brett, who is our guest on the Science of UX podcast, and he says, it's not that funny. This push of people into nouveau UX has significantly affected the livelihoods of many traditional UXers who've spent decades. Many have had to leave the practice. It's a crisis. I've also seen that our pay is going down, and people are leaving the practice, and that means there's few of us to mentor the people who are saying, teach me, help me. Help me get to that level. And you can't have it both ways. You can't say Debbie and Darren and Nick are old farts who use some old techniques and they're so annoying and they're so elitist, but won't somebody please teach me what to do so I can have the career and the money that I want? You're going to have to pick one of those, and I don't understand why people, not everybody's going to like our bold style, but we are representative of what UX practitioners used to be, should be, bold, speak for people, lawyer-like people. You cannot be an ass kisser or a people pleaser or the endless diplomat. You can't be the person posting to LinkedIn, can't we all just get along? Can't we all, nobody should say anything bad about each other. Don't say anything bad. If you have something bad to say about somebody else, don't say it. Look, you're in your job. Okay, so it's not always cool to say bad things about each other on LinkedIn or social media, but it is our job to show up and say, this is bad. We have to fix it. And here's how. So a couple of other comments from the room. Sean says if we don't put good standards in place, things like design thinking and design sprints will get more and more traction. And of course, we're seeing that where people want the Fisher-Price watered down baby version of UX because anybody can do it and we don't need those UX people. Even I've noticed the juniors want to do it because then they don't have to learn how to do UX with any science and technique. They can just facilitate a workshop. So I know we're running super late. Thank you guys so much for staying so long. I'll give you each a chance to make some closing remarks about is UX Elitist and remind people how they can find you and follow you everywhere on the planet. Darren, you've got an appointment to go to. You can go first and then you can close your browser and run.
Sure thing. You're going to see a minor miracle because I'm going to be short and sweet. So we are not elitist. Elitist by definition is a person having thought to have or professing superior intellect or talent, power, wealth, or membership in the upper echelons of society. We don't think that of ourselves at all. We are simply trying to look out for the best of the discipline and trying to be the best we can be. So we're not elitist, but the UX professional, the good, the ethical UX professional, and emphasis on the word professional, we take pride in what we do, and we're just trying to excel at our craft. That's all. If you're threatened by that, then you really need, that means there's a self-awareness problem, there's an inferiority complex, and quite frankly, until you graduate from that, you're not going to be ready to step where we are. Because we sort of have to lose ourselves to do what we do, in a sense. You can't advocate for users if you don't lose yourselves. So make sure that that's why I always talk about the emotional intelligence, ramp up on the emotional intelligence. And if you have that mindset today, you can overcome it. So even you can overcome it and be better. But that's who we are. We're not elitists by any stretch of the imagination.
And you are UX Uncensored on YouTube. You
Yes.
are UX Uncensored on
yeah.
Twitter. And you are Darren Hood on LinkedIn. Everybody find this man. Follow him every way possible. And
the podcast. Don't forget the World of UX podcast. We are currently talking about the mirage of ambiguity in UX, and I'm getting a lot of feedback about that because they think it's ambiguous. No, it looks ambiguous because these people we're talking about they're laying seeds to what UX is and they're redefining it, and so now people are confused. It's not confusing. Let's get back to standards and we'll take the world by storm.
Thank you. Thank you so much for joining in this fiery conversation. And I know we've made you late to your doctor's appointment, but hope you're feeling better.
I'm going to email them now.
Okay. Dr. Nick, closing words.
Firstly, just to end up on what Darren was saying before, I think we've lost a lot of people to product because that's the next shiny thing. So a lot of UX leads, and there is actually a natural progression that way, believe it or not. So I can understand that, but that's still a problem because we've got brain drain at the top end, which is a bit of a problem. So I don't believe UX is elitist. I echo everything Darren has said. This is about quality control, user centricity, validity, all of those good things. As a lead, that we all three of us are, speaking for myself, when I'm the lead, it reflects upon me. It's on my shoulders, the conversion rate or whatever it is we're trying to achieve, the delivery, the product, whatever that is, it's on me ultimately. And so if I'm going to speak to somebody else in a certain way about a certain thing, it's because I'm protecting all of us, our reputations, the performance of the output, the whole thing. If people want to get snowflakey and butthurt over that, then they really should reconsider either their attitude or their role in our industry, because there's a lot of just sucking it up and being told that you've made a mistake, that's not the right way to do it, instead of being like, oh, they told me off. I'm not telling you off, I'm just telling you how to improve. Seeing it as an opportunity to get better, not that I'm telling you off. Right? That's what that's about. Also, another thing, there's just some of the noisiest people on LinkedIn or Twitter are some of the least qualified people, like on Medium. Look them up on LinkedIn, look them down, say, where's their qualification? Have they got a base set of principles that this comes from, or have they got 10, 15 years of rock solid experience across a ton of different things? Because if they haven't, they're talking shit. Bottom line. Okay, walk away from it. It might look beautiful, might be amazingly designed, because we've got so many UX UI people in our world now. There's a lot of very pretty stuff going on, but a lot of it is fake news, or in Medium, really well written garbage. Absolute garbage. So I guess that's what I want to say. I don't do podcasts and that stuff. I just tend to come on Debbie's and that kind of thing. You can find me on LinkedIn. I prefer LinkedIn because we can have a discussion and a proper argument. We can get into stuff there, whereas Twitter's just this long receipt of stuff that I can't ever keep up with. So I'm Dr. Fine on LinkedIn, DoctorFine on Twitter, and look me up Nick Fine or Dr. Nick on LinkedIn. UX, in summary, is not elitist. It isn't difficult. It just requires digging in and learning, getting that experience over many years. That's not elitist. You will feel more comfortable. You'll be less defensive. You'll have a better outlook. It just means you got to learn the hard stuff.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you both so much. Quick closing notes from me. I made a note that said here, we've all watched the American Idol auditions where somebody is singing really badly. And we look at that person and we know that they probably have put in time into singing. They might have practiced their singing. They might have even had singing lessons, but they're still not great at it. And in the audience, we look at them and we go, oh, wow, they're really not that good a singer. Now, are you being elitist because you happen to notice that someone wasn't particularly strong at something? That doesn't make you elitist. It just means you happen to notice when people are not very strong at what they're doing. When the three of us and others like us and some of the hiring managers considering your application, your portfolio, see what you're doing and say, this isn't strong yet. We don't get some jollies out of cutting you down. We are trying to help and be mentors and coaches and say, if UX is for you, here's where there's room for improvement. And if UX is not for you, better to find that out early. All y'all have heard the story about how I was going to be a genetic researcher and took all the pre-med classes at university, including physics with calculus. Hands up, who works in UX and took physics with calculus? Me. So, and passed it. So, and then decided, you know what, I'm not going to go into medicine. And it tore me apart when I was 19, and then I rebounded and I found where I was meant to be. Not everybody is meant to be in UX. A good mentor or coach is going to help you find that path. And September 10th, my life coach will be on to talk about finding your life purpose. Tune in then. So thanks again to everybody for joining. I'm sorry we ran 20 minutes late on this one, but it is never a short broadcast when you get the three of us. So I hope we'll do this again on another topic. Thanks, everybody. Be well, be safe, and see you very soon for more adventures.
Thanks for watching. Delta CX is available for consulting and projects related to CX and UX strategy, leadership, training, problem finding, problem solving, and innovation. Learn more at deltacx.com.